Welcome to Implausible Nature, your home for all things Black Templar. On today's video, we're going to talk about what's the best vow for my army versus what opponent. As everyone probably already knows, Armor of Contempt, the new rule that came out for Space Marines in the most recent data slate, balanced data slate, drastically changed a lot of things for Space Marines, giving a huge buff across the board to every unit in our army. Um, and this kind of changes the paradigm for us as Black Templars on which vows should we take in any given circumstance. Up until now, we've sort of all been defaulting mostly towards uphold simply because you only needed like AP2 to trigger it on most of your units. On neophytes, you only need AP1 to trigger it. Having that 5 up invul and the mini transhuman was really just a few good steps above everything else. Now we are sort of in a position where that 5 plus is not going to come into play nearly as often. And that opens up a lot of opportunities for us as far as taking the vows, the other vows, more often. So we're going to talk about we're going to go through every army that we might face and talk about what vows we think are going to be your best bet against those particular armies, because there's some different choices now, which is great. Um, I think it gives us a little bit more flexibility, which is nice. So really quick, we're gonna roll over what the vows are and just talk about, then dive into where we think we should be with each particular enemy that we may face. To really quick go over the vows. Suffer not the unclean to live. Each time a model in this unit makes a melee attack against a non-vehicle unit, a unmodified hit roll of 6 automatically wounds the target. And the passion is that when you make a charge move, you have to charge the nearest unengaged unit. Uh, so um, the uh, the next one is uphold the honor of the emperor. This is the one we've been talking about. 5 up invul, can't be wounded on 2s. The passion is you don't get cover essentially, except for obscuring. So pretty big deal on that passion, but overridden by the fact that everything gets a 5 plus invul.
Yeah.
Abhor the witch, destroy the witch was previously probably the worst vow. You get a 3-inch pregame move if the enemy army contains a psyker unit. And the passion is that you cannot perform actions if you're within 18 inches of an enemy psyker. Which previously was who cared, because we weren't really doing action secondaries. It's irrelevant now. We'll talk about that here in just a minute. And then the last vow is accept any challenge no matter the odds. Basically, instead of getting a shock assault, you always have +1 attack. So it doesn't matter what round of combat it is, you'll always have +1 attack. The downside is you can't fall back, which, I mean, there are some cases where it is beneficial to fall back, but we're Black Templars. What are we doing falling back?
You also always are in assault doctrine.
You are also always in Assault Doctrine.
Yep.
So you're always getting that +1 AP, which is going to be important against some armies. The nice caveat with this is that you are in Assault Doctrine while you are in engagement range. So if you're not in engagement range, you're in whatever doctrine you're in, which means you can stay in Tactical Doctrine for both turns that it's available to get that extra AP on your assault and rapid fire weapons. And you get the first turn heavy doctrine as well. So even if somehow you end up in combat on first turn, which against some opponents is now possible, there's a lot of crazy first turn charging abilities for some of our enemies, particularly like Nids and Genestealers. the you'll get that extra AP in that first round when you're in engagement range, which is great. So that's a quick overview of the vows. We mentioned abhor the witch and why actions are suddenly relevant, um, because several of the missions have, now there's the two primaries. There's the main objectives, and then there's a sort of like secondary primary, which is really weird. Um, but you earn less points for it. Some of those are actions. So you got to be careful when you think about whether you're taking up abhor or not. If you're running one of those missions, you just got to be cognizant of that fact.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you shouldn't run abhor. Just got to be aware that, hey, 18 inches is a big bubble. We want to make sure that we're still able to do those to score points, right? So let's dive right in here. We are going to start with Space Marines. So Space Marines, I think, for the most part, with two exceptions that we are going to talk about here, we are going to basically, versus almost every Space Marine chapter, go with accept any challenge. What do you think, Bob?
Yeah, you're going to want to counter the armor of contempt that most of these armies are going to be using,
Yep.
and a lot of the armies are going to be very similar in what they do, whether it be the Codex Marines, Ultramarines, that type of thing. They're going to be similar styles. Um, there's a couple of supplements that we'll get to here in just a few minutes, but that are a little bit different. But most of them, you're going to want to be getting that armor contempt off of them as quickly as possible. But it also allows you, as mentioned earlier, just staying in tactical doctrine a little bit longer, getting
Yep.
that extra AP
Yep.
as much as possible. So that's going to be critical while you advance up to the board, especially since we're a little bit slower. Unless we take a little bit faster units, but we're a board control army, then we want that centerpiece. So we're going to be kind of grinding it down a little bit so we can use that. If you tech into that and some shooting, that additional tactical doctrine, turn of tactical doctrine, while not sacrificing a turn of assault doctrine, is kind of huge. So that's a good piece for Space Marines. What hurts us hurts them. So this
Yeah.
is definitely a good choice.
Yeah. Absolutely. So we mentioned a couple exceptions here. I think there are two chapters of Space Marines that we want to look at running something different. Um, the first one I think is Blood Angels. Blood Angels have obviously part of their special army special rules is getting +1 to wound when they basically in shock assault. They're getting +1 to wound. That means that things like Sangard with their axes are going to be wounding us on twos normally. There's a lot of they tilt into making sure that they're wounding tough 4 on twos and tough 5 on threes in every aspect that they can. So I think Blood Angels is really going to be an uphold the honor type of uh, army that we face. It kind of hurts a little bit to sacrifice that extra AP all the time in melee because we are going to be in melee with these guys. But I think it's better to be more durable in this regard than not. What do you think, Bob?
Yeah, I agree. Just because they have gotten Blood Angels, Sanguinary Guard are one of the units that have been buffed significantly with AOC.
Yeah, that
Um,
2+ save helps them a lot with that.
and they're fast, they strike above their weight, and we just really need to make sure that we limit the damage that they do, especially since they're going to be outmaneuvering us typically. The other facet of that is their AP is really high. So
Yeah.
they're going to be punching through your 3+ armor save, even with AOC.
Yep.
So having that 5 up save is still going to be useful for you.
And like us, they have ways to get into Assault Doctrine early, namely through their Sanguinary Priests, which means they're going to be getting that AP and melee as well. So anything we can do to negate that extra AP whether it be through AOC or through the uh, uphold, is going to be important. So that brings us to our next Space Marine chapter, which is surprisingly going to be Dark Angels. You might think, why Dark Angels? But Dark Angels love plasma. And Space Marine plasma typically is pretty high AP, especially Primaris plasma. It's all AP4. It generally runs high strength. A lot of it is going to be strength 8 when you overcharge, which means they're going to be wounding you on 2s. I think depending on what their list is, if they're very plasma heavy, you'll want to look at taking a different vow than accept any challenge. Same thing if they're very Terminator heavy. If they're very Terminator heavy, I think you can look at perhaps running Suffer Not with them, because you'll get that auto wound against their silly transhuman, which makes life a little bit easier for you. I think more than likely, though, you're going to be taking Uphold against them, simply because, generally speaking, they're going to run probably a lot more plasma than most other chapters, because they have weapons of the Dark Age and things like that.
This is going to be one of those times where you're going to be looking at their list before the game, just
Yep,
taking a stock of how much plasma's out there. You got a couple options here, but most likely, if you're playing Dark Angels, they're going to be spec'd into Terminators and Plasma. Those are going
yep,
to be the two things that you're going to be looking at.
yep.
And those Terminators probably are going to be running Power Fists or Thunder Hammers. So that's also another thing that you have to
Yep.
be mindful of, so that mini transhuman can save your
It's
bacon.
gonna it's gonna help you a lot. The other thing to consider too is, you might think, well, but Suffer Not, they got that transhuman on all their Terminators. You know what? We are running more and more Primaris than ever before as Black Templars. There are very few units, that are, we are taking that are firstborn, and those that are generally either things like lightning claw units, like relic terminators, are now coming back into vogue. Vanguard vets are still good with those lightning claws. They're wounding on 4s anyway. So really, your biggest detriment here is going to be, centurions against them, which won't benefit from Gene Rot Might. But any of your Primaris units, you can get the same benefit from Suffer Not with Gene Rot Might. So
Yep.
something to consider. Take a look at your list. Am I running units that I really need to auto wound on, or can I use Gene Rot Might in a pinch if I need to? So, all right. So moving on, we have Adeptus Mechanicus. Where do you think we're going to fall with this one, Bob?
This one, there is really no reason with Armor or Contempt to really kind of go into Uphold. They do have some high strength weaponry, but most of them are going to be on their last chickens that aren't very economical anymore. So you're going to be looking at
Certainly not into your infantry.
yeah, yeah. So they have Strength 5 and Mortal Wounds still available for you, but what you're probably going to want more is to be able to a combination of things, be able to shoot them for longer with that additional AP, and get that AP with uh, your assaults. So accept any challenge is going to be the main thing that you're going to be looking at for these guys. Getting across the board when you need to, maybe have some Centurion sitting in the center of the board, getting those bolters an extra AP if they get within the 12 inches, or uh, the normal shooting at the 24. Maybe some Terminator shooting. But any extra AP on these guys are going to be important, especially if we're using like something low AP, chain swords, that type of thing, lightning claws to burst through. They're not great armor saves, but it's decent enough where that AP helps.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Next up, we've got Chaos Space Marines. Well, just like regular Space Marines, your run-of-the-mill generic Chaos Space Marines, we're going to want that extra AP because they too have Armor of Contempt. So we want that extra AP when we're in melee to help compensate for their Armor of Contempt. there's not. Of course, they have some plasma and they have some high strength weapons, just like Space Marines do. But generally, those things are going to be targeting stuff that is, like your heavier units, like dreadnoughts, your vehicles, shooting, that stuff at infantry, las cannons, and those sort of things. Generally, not economical for them. So. I think accept any challenge is going to be our best bet with them as well.
Yep, I agree.
All right. Next up, we are looking at both types of knights, both chaos and imperial knights, because as far as what they're capable of wielding weaponry wise, and what we're going to be doing, they're functionally very, very similar. Um, where do you think we should be running uphold, or excuse me, what vow do you think we should be running against knights, Bob?
So basically, what I've seen, and traditionally the weaponry that they have been using, is high strength with a ton of shots. So what I kind of feel that is kind of the best one of here is the most applicable would be uphold on that, because you're going to be facing a lot of high strength stuff into even basic troops,
Yep.
and a lot of it's going to be high AP. If you're looking at like battle cannon, the auto battle cannons, some of it's not going to be. If you're looking at like the Gatling gun, I forget the name of it, the big one that they have, but
Yeah.
they have their thermal cannons. There's a ton of stuff that they throw high strength at you, and even just negating just 16% of the shots that you can take on is going to be huge.
Yep.
Especially now that they have the chain swords that are going to be attacking you, that's going to be another huge thing that has tons of AP and going to be a lot more attacks.
Yep.
So we're going to be in close combat with these things. We need to be able to kill
And
them.
and you're going to see them more often now, if
Yep.
nothing else, because they're the a newer codex that's coming out. So depending on when you're watching this video, if it's a while from now, at the time that we're talking about this, they are going to be one of the newest codexes, so people are going to be playing them.
Yeah. There's a
If nothing else, because that's what happens.
Yeah, there's a ton of Knights players out there that kind of
Yeah.
put their models away when they got nerfed in Eighth Edition, and especially the bigger ones, the newer Knights, I should say, that
Yep.
came out. Uh, when they nerfed that, everyone kind of put them away. But all these armies are going to come back out once these codexes come out, so you're going to have to be able to deal with them. And really, honestly, you got to be able to hold up to their firepower. Once, if you can do that, you're putting yourself in a good position to win.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. So next up is an army that I'm sure all of you forgot existed, because I'm pretty sure GW forgot this army existed. We're talking about Chaos Demons. Who plays Chaos Demons?
Surprisingly
Surprisingly,
large amount of people. I just
there's
don't ever
actually
see them.
a fair number. Yeah, you just don't hear or see too much about them anymore. Uh, so this might be like a complete like, for some of our players, like, boy, I don't even know what to do against them. What's your advice, Bob?
So most armies are going to be taking Slanish demons, keeper of secrets lists that kind of rely on speed and the ability to do very targeted psychic actions and attacks on you to be able to be successful. And most of their units that are dangerous are psychic units. So Abhor is kind of the one where I would kind of lean into here. The reason why I wouldn't go into the other ones is Uphold is not a very good unit because most of their things, yes, the Keeper of Secrets are going to do a bunch of damage on you, but they're not going to be super high strength, a bunch of overall in their army because they have a lot of smaller units. So you're going to be wasting it there. Suffer not. The only ones that are going to be applicable really are going to be their big demons. Uphold again, a lot of not a lot of high strength or big AP. And the same thing with accept, because most of their armor saves are really junky anyway, and what they
If
do
they
have
even
is going to
have
be
an armor
involves.
save, most of them are just 5 up invuls.
Yeah, so that's not going to really help you. So the best one
Yeah.
here is to really kind of just lay into an extra additional move to get into better position and getting some strategic reroll ones onto wound on some items. So I mean, it's not the greatest pick, but you're really it's the best of the lot.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So next up is another newer codex. Those sneaky craftworld eldar.
It's funny you say that. So it was kind of funny. We're kind of talking about them a little bit, and I don't know if you just didn't remember or not, and possibly not. But one of the biggest and trickiest armies out there right now is Shuriken spam.
Yep.
That is really
This is
kind of
gross.
uh, Doom is a spell that really kind of puts it over the top. Now, for those that don't know what the Shuriken do, is if on a roll of a 6 to hit, it has a combination of a couple things. You can auto wound, and it counts as a wound roll of a 6, which activates the AP -4 on it. So not only are you're going to be auto wounded,
Xenos.
you're going to be getting hit by AP -4 basic weaponry that can shoot a million times at you from practically halfway across the board, and they can re-roll all of your hits against you. So just basic troops are going to be putting a zillion AP4 shots into you. And the only way that you're really going to defend against that is having an invul. So uphold the honor is the way to go with
And
these
you
guys.
wonder why I hate Eldar. But yeah, I agree. I think Uphold the Honor is going to be the best bet here. They also they still have plenty of high strength stuff and other high AP stuff. So besides that, so I think that's going to be the best place for that to make
Yeah,
sure that we're being as durable as possible against them.
yeah, and you're really not going to gain too much with Abhor because you only have a few units that is going to be applicable against.
Yeah,
Suffer not; they're all strength 3 and accept any challenge. Yes, they do have some armor saves,
top
but
three. Yeah.
it's just going to be, you know, it's not going to be really applicable because they're shooting you across the board, and even if you get to them, by the time that it's there, do you have
They're
enough?
they have
Yeah.
some really deadly units in melee, but they're still pretty fragile. They're like glass cannons.
Hmm.
So, you're either going to smash them or you're not. You're either going to get smashed or smash them. So, accept any challenge isn't going to, there's not going to be prolonged combat in
Yeah.
Eldar. So, that brings us to our next army. We're going back to another Astartes. We are talking about Death Guard. So, one of my regular opponents plays Death Guard, and they're all tough 5 or higher. Lots of high toughness with them. You'd think maybe Suffer Not might be a good take against them, but honestly, I'm gonna pick Uphold the Honor here, and the reason is they do have a fair amount of high strength weaponry. Plague Burst crawlers, despite losing uh, uh, quite a bit of teeth from their indirect fire, still, when shooting you directly, have a bunch of strength 8 and higher stuff that they're going to target you with. And the entire army has an aura that gets bigger and bigger as the game goes on of -1 toughness. So you're looking at strength 6 stuff wounding you on 2s. Not good. I think Uphold the Honor is going to be your best bet here. Um, if nothing else, because that little mini transhuman is going to help you out quite a bit.
Yeah, I would agree with this. You could make the argument with me that Suffer Not would be a decent pick here. I could I could get behind that, even
Or
maybe
even
accept
accept any
a
challenge. Yeah.
challenge. But I think overall, you're going to get more mileage out of Uphold
Hmm.
overall. Um, are you going to get much out of that AP against Death Guard? Probably not, because most of their stuff is AP 1 and 2. But really, what you're kind of looking at is the transhuman on that. I think
Yeah.
that'll just get you more mileage overall.
Yeah. There was a lot of times the last time that I played my death card opponent when we I was using this vow. This was before Armor of Contempt, and like it was a constant thing. He'd be like, "Okay, so I'm gonna wound you on twos," and I'm like threes, and he's like, threes. So you know, it was some when he's used to wounding people on twos, and he's suddenly wounding people on threes. It's definitely a big detriment for them. So I think that's probably the best route there. All right. So up next, we are looking at drukhari, who have a ton of stuff like lances and other gross weaponry. They have poison weaponry, wounding you at twos. I'm leaning towards uphold against them, Bob. What do you think?
Yeah, there's just too much that the Drukhari can do to get around your toughness,
Yeah.
whether it be using Spirit Siphon and getting +1 to wounding with the Spirit Siphon, which is a Chronos. Lances, you have the Heat Lances. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. Dark Scythes, just a million things. They got pluses, a ton of high AP stuff. Their witches do the same thing as Shuriken with their blood artists. I mean, there really isn't any other choice other than Uphold, in my
Yep.
opinion, just based on the mini transhuman alone. But they can still probably hit your invul even with the armor of contempt.
Hmm.
So it just that's the best option in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, they're still gross. You still got to watch out for them. They have a lot of tools in their bag to kill Marines. So I think that will help us.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on to another Xenos faction here, Tyranids. So Tyranids, this is one that Bob and I kind of bounced around on because there's several different options here. You really kind of have to judge what your opponent is running, right?
Yeah.
So there is, uh, you could really argue in favor of several different options. You could look at, well, there's a lot of psychic spam that they're running right now, which may or may not be nerfed in the future. So even if they nerf the psychic spam, the mortal wound spam that they're doing right now, Tyranids traditionally have always run a bunch of psychic stuff. And their big monsters are, psychers. So uh, getting a reroll to wound against them is pretty nice for Abhor the Witch. So you could argue that they go in here. You could also argue that, hey, if they're running Monster Mash, we could be down here in Suffer Not, where they are getting auto wounds off. All their monsters, all their big monsters now, with like one or two exceptions, are now all tough 8, which means we're going to be with our basic like chainsword guys. Our basic dudes are all going to be wounding them on 6s, which sucks. So unless you're running, something to improve your strength, like Helbricht, or you're all Primaris, where you can Gene Rot Might somebody, Suffer Not might be an option. And they still have can put out a decent amount of AP. You could even argue for Uphold the Honor with them. So, where do you think we should, generally speaking, default to with these guys, Bob?
Okay, so on my post tournament live stream, kind of lamented that there was not really a good vow to take, and I still kind of stand by that. But when you're looking back on it, and most of the armies now that are being taken in tournament lists, they're Leviathan. So one of the Leviathan traits is that all their synapse gets transhuman. And most of the lists that they're taking are bulking out on synapse. So they're using warriors, they're using different characters, monsters, all of those are synapse. So not only do you have to wound on at least a 6 against the monsters, even other warriors you can only wound them on 4s at high, like with your higher strength things. So I'm thinking Suffer Not probably is going to be your best option against the newer nids, especially if they're in Leviathan. I I could get behind a horror maybe, but the problem is I don't really want to be closer to these Tyranids with their mortal wound spam.
Yeah.
So I don't really want to use that 3-inch movement, as well as the re-roll, and they're going to be right on you real quick with their psychic attacking. So you may not be able to get those actions off, which is a problem.
Yeah.
So uphold possibly, but they do honestly most of their damage is going to be with like their free death spitters, I think they're called, which are not high strength. They're just bulk of shots and all their mortal wounds. So
Yep.
I think Suffer Not might be the best one here.
Yep. I think I agree with you there. All right. So they're more human cousins, genestealer cults. Where do we think we're gonna fall with them?
I think this one's going to be an accept any challenge because they do have some armor saves that you do want to kind of pop through. They don't have the high strength and high AP stuff that you're going to be looking at for Uphold, nor do they have really high toughness things that you kind of need to bulk out through. They only have a couple of witches as well, so this is going to be the natural one to take. Just kind of bulk
Yeah.
out your AP a little bit.
Yep. Yeah, I would agree with that. So moving on to Grey Knights. So there could be an argument made for taking accept any challenge against Grey Knights because they are Space Marines. They do get the armor of contempt. Um, so um, so there is that. The issue is that uh, they're all psychers. Literally, almost every unit in the army is psychers. So I'm thinking Abhor the Witch is probably going to be the best bet because you're going to get a
Yeah,
reroll to wound against almost the entire army. You just have to be cognizant of what mission you're running. So if it's a mission where you're not sure that there's an action to perform for the second primary, you may and you think I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do that as much as possible. You're gonna either have to be prepared to screen well, or maybe then instead choose accept any challenge. But I think generally speaking, we want a Pour the Witch with them.
yeah. You want to get to the middle as quickly as possible and be able to shoot them because they do have some dangerous units. Their
Yep.
baby carriers are going to be kind of dangerous. Now, one thing to note with this is they're only packing AP1 and 2 stuff for the vast majority of their weaponry. So
Yep.
Armor Contempt is going to knock out most of their AP. So you're going to be seeing, on average, a 4-up save on pretty much most of all of your stuff. So uphold is not going to be really kind of a factor here. But if your army is built, somewhat balanced on there, it's useful to get those reroll to wounds. Now, if all your close combat attacks are lightning claws, maybe not so much. You maybe accept a challenge is going to be better for you on this one, but that additional move is kind of huge to get to that center, and maybe get a first turn charge off on them if they deploy kind of strange. So that's just something to think about because they're really, that's kind of a big thing for you, being able to get that extra 3.
Yep.
And it's the closest that you can probably get to our
Es-
advance and charge like we used to with the den
Especially
project.
because Grey Knights typically are going to have a lot of stuff in reserve and come down on turn 2 or turn 3, with their, dot the board. And if you can spread the board a little bit more, and board control, you're going to make it more difficult for them to come down from their teleporting. So,
Yep.
all right. So that brings us to Imperial Guard. Um, I think Imperial Guard, they do have a bunch of artillery and things like that. You could, depending on how much strength 8 stuff they have, you could lean into uphold the honor. But all of their Lehman Russes, which are very popular, they have good armor saves on there. The guardsmen, man, not so much. It's 5 plus. Um, but I think accept any challenge probably going to be our best bet against Imperial Guard.
Yeah, the reason why, and honestly, the assault doctrine doesn't really matter so much unless you're going up against the tanks and trying to take them out. But what you're going to actually see is being bogged down in multiple combats against infantry, because most of the Imperial Guard lists take a lot of infantry. They'll take the tank commander and a few
Especially with
other
Hammer the
pieces.
Emperor now.
Yeah, they'll take a lot of infantry, and you'll be bogged down. So you're going to want to have that extra attack in the subsequent uh,
Yep.
combat, so you'll be able to take them down quicker, because you don't want to be stuck in one unit of infantry all game and just waste away that unit.
And if you're running a lot of chain swords, that extra AP is going to help you
Yep.
to make sure that you just negate their armor entirely. So yeah. All right. That brings us to Harlequins.
So this is a army that is pretty tough to pick. So, and again, this is going to be the one it's kind of like there's not really anything much better. Um, but we chose to go with Uphold on this one simply because they do have some high strength stuff. They're using the Void Reavers, which you're probably not going to see nearly as much of them now. Um, but they do have AP that you could. They have sparing some AP that they can get into uh, your units. Not a ton, but um, that they can. Um, Honestly, accepting challenge doesn't matter. They have a 4+ save. They have one model that is a Zerker, so poor is not going to matter. They're strength 3, so suffer not doesn't matter. So really the only thing that's applicable is going to be uphold for transhuman occasionally. You're really not going to see a ton of AP or need to get that 5 up, but maybe the transhuman every once in a while.
Yeah. All right. So that brings us to Necrons. Now, most of you know Necrons are my second army. So I feel
Heresy.
like, yeah, I don't want to hear it from you, Mister Harlequins. Um,
I never
so
played the army.
you could go one of two routes with Necrons here. So most of the army is going to be armor save 3 plus. Warriors are 4 up. Virtually the rest of the army, with a few exceptions here and there for some specific units, are 3 plus. All the deadlier melee units, um, are things like that are going to be 3 plus or have an invul. So accept any challenge to get that extra AP to help make sure that goes through, or especially if you're spamming, Primaris Crusader squads with chain swords, that extra AP on there help punch through the warrior's armor. So you could go with accept any challenge. Another option for you here is going to be suffer not, and the reason why is, with the exception of warriors and flayed ones and scarabs, uh, virtually the entire army is tough 5 or higher. So you'd be able to wound a little easier, make sure those wounds get through. Um, I know Scorpex are one of the best units in the book, especially now. They have a -1 to wound strat, and they are incredibly deadly. So you want to kill them as fast as possible. So being able to wound them without having to worry about them triggering that -1 to wound against you could be useful. So I think it's really a toss up between accept any challenge and suffer not. I think if I'm going to have to choose one, I'm probably going to go with accept any challenge, just because the passion is not quite as bad as suffer not. Um, Necrons have uh, a fair amount of cheap units and large units that they can force you to try to charge with suffer not and bait you into bad charges. And they have ways to fall back and shoot. So, accept any challenge. Really, for me, it's a 50-50 toss up on what I'm going to use, just sort of based on their list. But if I just have to pick one, I'm going to go with accept any challenge.
Yeah, I think I would do the same thing on that because AP is going to be really kind of important.
Hmm.
Prolonged combats, if you're stuck in them, I would rather have that additional
Extra attack, yeah.
extra attack on those
And
ones.
you're going to be in prolonged combat. If you get stuck in with a warrior blob, you are going to be in prolonged combat. You're going to want those extra attacks because warriors are stupidly hard to kill.
Yeah, that's where I'm leaning is accept.
Yep. All right. So moving on, orcs. This was another one that we kind of struggled to figure out what the best one is going to be. They don't run a ton of psychers. They don't have a ton of high AP or high strength stuff. AP is next to meaningless against orcs. So I think our best option is probably going to be suffer not. What do you think, Bob?
If you have to pick a vow, I would probably go with suffer not. But honestly, this might be one of the few times I choose not to take a vow, simply because of the passions of everyone.
Can we even
That
do that?
you certainly can.
You can select. Yeah, so I mean, you don't have to, I guess.
Orcs are probably the only
Only army.
army that I would say that there may not be a good vow choice, and
Yeah.
the passions just are too much of a hindrance, in my opinion.
Yeah,
So,
if you're not running one of those missions that has the actions in it, and they happen to have a weird boy, you could go with Abhor the Witch, to get a couple extra inches of movement on that first turn
yeah.
because orcs are generally pretty quick. So something to think about there. All right. So up next is going to be Sisters of Battle. Much like Space Marines, I think they have power armor too. They are part of Armor of Contempt. We're going to want that extra AP of accept any challenge when we get into melee with them. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Now, there is an argument to be had that you could put them in a hold because of their
They
reliance on Melta,
do love Melta. Yep.
and they do have some very high AP weaponry. So, that could be something that you do. But typically, what you're probably going to be seeing is the need for additional AP.
Yep. They have 3 pluses just like us. We want to punch through that as quickly as possible. If yeah, they have the high strength, but honestly, if they're shooting melta weapons at your infantry, they're already not being efficient with it. So, uh, you know, you're mainly looking out for that high AP, but we have armor of contempt too. So I think more often than not, we're going to take accept any challenge with them. All right. So next up is custodes.
All right, this one's going to be a kind of a couple different options for you. So they do have a 2+, 4+ invul. So you could, depending on your weaponry that you have in your list, if it's primarily chainsword based, uh, because they also do not get armor of contempt.
Yep. Thank
So
God.
that would be just gross.
It would be gross.
So if you're chainsword base or something that is flat damage, accepting challenge. They would also be a good choice for suffer not because most of them are base five, base
Almost
six
all of
if
them
you're
are, toughness
six.
5, 6. Yeah.
So a lot of the lists now are transitioning away from bikes and going into mass troops, which are tough five, and I believe 4 wounds each. Don't quote me, but I think they're 4 wounds each, maybe three.
Probably
But they're
3.
pretty tough
Who knows?
to
Yeah.
take out.
Yeah.
They're fairly cheap, so being able to get past that and not having to worry about their one-time use, no rerolls or anything like that. So you forcing wounds on them
Yep.
is kind of a good way to go. Suffer not is
Yeah.
going to be good, and they don't have enough units to really bait
Bait
you
you
out.
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they might get you in a couple places here and there, but then you're going to be throwing yeah ten
And let's
guys
face
with
it, they want to be in melee with you too. So there's probably going to be a lot of circumstances where they're charging us.
yeah
Just as much as we're charging them. So I think that will be fine with them. So moving on, coming getting close towards the end here. We are looking at Thousand Suns. So Thousand Suns, once again, are Space Marines. They do get the armor of contempt. Their Terminators are stupid with it, uh, but you know, getting an extra AP against them really doesn't matter because they're still going to be saving on twos anyway. So
yeah
I would flat out ignore that and not worry about that, and instead go for a Pour the Witch and get a reroll to wound and some extra movement because they're not super fast.
no they are
Uh,
not.
and almost, they are going to run tons of psychic units as well. So they're going to fall in there with Grey Knights, I think.
Yeah, it's a clear Port of the Witch choice. And then that extra movement is going to allow you to screen the board even more because they do have a couple of units that they do want to take off the board and deep strike on them. So they're flamers. I forget the name of what they're called, but those things are kind of dangerous. And if you're going to screen them off as best you can with that extra movement, that's going to be critical and shut down their game. That's one of their alpha strikes that they kind of rely on. And if you can knock that out, you're sitting pretty.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so last and in my opinion, one of the most certainly least. I don't like them. We've got Tau. So Tau definitely took a nerf bat with the indirect fire nerfs, but they are still really strong. They still have good weaponry. They have high tough units. Where are we sitting with Tau?
Honestly, I don't think you can go with any other thing other than a pulled. They're going hard into plasma now. Now that they can't do indirect, so that they are going for killing Marines. Now that the meta is shifted towards a lot more Space Marine players due to armor contempt, they're attacking into plasma and melta. So
Well, and their indirect fire stuff was all AP1, which we, taking a pip off of that, it's now AP0. We're saving on threes again. Versus it, it definitely hurts them a lot in that respect.
yep,
Plus, they can't like hide and shoot it anymore. They got to be where we can see them, where we can shoot them back, where we can charge them back. So yeah, they're gonna attack in the plasma into their high strength railgun stuff.
yep.
I agree. I think Uphold the Honor is going to be the best bet uh, against Tau. So yeah, so that brings us to the end of our list here. I think this is obviously Uphold. We're still looking at um, a majority of the armies that we're teching into. There were a couple in here. We talked about Dark Angels could be down here and Suffer Not. Death Guard could be down here and Suffer Not. Um, but I think they're still best option, especially Dark Angels if they're spamming Plasma are going to be in uphold. So still a slight majority of armies we're going to tech into uphold the honor, but a significant portion going into accept any challenge, which is awesome to see. Another vow, essentially, competing with uphold, and then we got some niche choices here with suffer not and abhor the witch, which means that we have a variety of options to choose from, which I like a lot. I like the new variety here. That we're not sort of, hey, this is the best vow by far. A pretty decent spread. What do you think, Bob?
Yeah, and there's definitely more options out there for the different armies. Really, if you're going uphold, it's you're going to be facing the couple Space Marine armies, Knights or Eldar. That's really kind of your main ones that you're going to be in uphold, obviously, and then Tau. Um,
And we've got two, basically knights and chaos knights that are essentially the same army. I
yeah,
mean, I realize they are slightly different from each other, but they function largely the same. Some big dudes, some armature style guys, lots of high strength, lots of AP. These are really almost like two sides of the same coin. So they're virtually almost even if you look at that way.
yeah. And there's just a lot more stuff that's out there. You have to negate the other army's armor or contempt. So accepting challenge is something that you kind of want to kind of spec into now. Um, and we can get around it. As long as you build your army with some um, tactical doctrine things, like storm bolters or maybe combi bolters or what have you, uh,
Plasma.
plasma, some of those things that you're still going to get that extra AP knockout. Even the high uh, AP stuff, shooting plasma at sanguinary guard in tactical doctrine. They're going to good luck
Make
with
those
that
Sang
army.
guards save on sixes instead of
So
fives. So
some great
yeah,
choices there.
yep, absolutely. Uh, so that's our sort of best case scenario where we're thinking of running our against which opponent, which vow should we choose. Your mileage may vary. Let us
Yep.
know, what you think down in the comments. Um, if you like this video, leave a like and make sure you subscribe. Also, check out our Patreon if you want to support us further. We really appreciate our patrons, and you get early access to videos and special Discord roles, things like that. So definitely check that out. We also have a really active Discord community with a ton of great folks there, over 1,000 members now. I can't believe we have a Discord with 1,000 people on it. It's awesome.
1100.
Yeah, so we're also running a painting competition right now, so check that out as well. And come visit us. We love to speak with you about Black Templars and everything going on with the hobby. So check us out, and until next time, keep on crusading.